This is a story about a man whose family once ruled Kenya. Tom Cholmondeley is about to inherit one of the last great estates left from colonial times and the title Lord Delamere. But now he's on trial, charged with murdering a black poacher on his land. Joya, the widow with 4 children, wants her husband's killer brought to justice. Outside the court, people are calling for his blood.
Munataka anyongwe. Uinueni mikono ndio serikali ione.
The world's press sends a huge story.
This was a story with all the ingredients of a good story.
News desk.
Land, aristocracy, from our colonial past, wealth, and a peasant, probably landless Kenyan. So it had all the ingredients of a very good story.
If convicted of murder, Cholmondeley could hang.
The accused has been charged for the offense of murder.
I cannot see how I could have shot that person. That is the absolute and utter truth.
The trial has gripped the nation. Many see the trial as a symptom of the contrast between the lives of a few wealthy Kenyan landowners and more hungry people. One late afternoon in May 2006, Cholmondeley gets a visit from his friend Carl Tundo, nicknamed Flash. Tundo wants to look for a site where he can build himself a farmhouse on an outlying region of the family's vast estate. Cholmondeley brings a rifle in case they meet a buffalo.
Siku hiyo ya Jumatano, alikuwa peke yake kwa shamba, wakati wa asubuhi. Mimi nilikuwa nimeenda, ndipo saa 10 hivi akatoka, akaenda kwa marafiki zake, akaenda kwa Ndaramia. Siku hiyo ilikuwa yangu ya mwisho kuonana na yeye.
Just off the estate lives Robert Njoya and his friends Joseph Kamau and Peter Gishui. They walk into the estate to check on the snares they have set on Delamere's land. It's illegal, but hunger makes poaching common.
Ile sasa ni ile nyama tu ya kutafuta tu kaa tu ya mboga hivi ya kukula tu nyumbani, si nyama ya kuuza.
This is where they came into for the last house site to look at. And it's quite open for a while and then goes into bush. And they were going to go up to the top of the hill here, to the ridge, to look for a house site which has a wonderful view over the farm and over the lake. And this is where basically it's allegedly all happened, in here.
Kendi hivyo kuna mahali kulikuwa na tu mitego hivi. Ndio tukenda sasa tukakuta kuna swala lilikuwa imeshikwa hapo hivi. Sasa tukasema ile swala tunaweza ibeba, lakini mwanzo itolewe mpaka vitu za tumbo, sasa tuichinje tuipasuanishe. Sasa ile kupasuanisha sasa ndio yeye akasema yeye ndio mwenyewe ataibeba. Sasa kuibeba tukasema sasa tupite nzingine ilikuwa hapo hivi.
I walked forward about 20 metres and I was surprised by a group of people. There were 5 people and a number of dogs. I think I heard someone say, "Hawezi kufanya kitu." Some of the dogs were in the open, visible in the clearing in front of me and ahead of the men. The dogs are the main tool of poachers. They use the dogs to chase the game animals into snares, and when the animals are killed, they're then taken away and eaten, sold. I dropped to one knee. I aimed through the telescopic sight. There were 2 dogs. They were the only thing in the field of view of the telescope. I aimed at the red-brown dog. I shot one dog and I saw it drop instantly.
Saka tumeenda kueleka pale tunakuwa tunataka kwenda kuweka kwa mtu mwingine ilikuwa hapo hivi. Sasa ndio tulisikia milio risasi sasa.
Then worked the bolt and I shot the second dog, which also dropped.
Wakati tulisikia tu risasi, kila mtu alipotea kivyake. Kwa hiyo kwanza mtu alistuka na ile kitu kilikuwa na kumkono ikaanguka na kupotea. Juu nini inaendelea.
I stood up, took one step forward to free the box in my hip pocket. I reloaded the magazine and then shut the rifle and I put the box back in my pocket. While I was doing all this, all the men ran from my right the way across to my left and disappeared in some bushes. One of the guys was carrying a Thompson's Gazelle over his shoulder. It's very distinctive and easy to know what it was because it's got a black stripe down the side of it.
Chamli's estate is 150 kilometers north of Nairobi in the Rift Valley. The farm stretches for 48,000 acres. As far as the eye can see, it's his land. His secluded house stands empty because he is now in Kenya's maximum security prison. Sally, his girlfriend, lived with him here.
I hope I can get my life back. Yeah, I think just to be able to wake up and just say, God, today is a beautiful day and having Tom free.
Chamli's parents, Lord and Lady Delamere, live up in the old main house. They sent him to Eton, the boarding school in England, just like his ancestors. He dropped out, got a job in England for a while, but when he had to renew his Kenyan passport, he came back and just stayed.
He had a lovely time. He did all the things that boys do. Bicycles and tricycles and rushing about, and he enjoyed himself.
And he liked driving my tractors, and I taught him to shoot.
I was looking around and I saw a man to my left. The man under the bush to my left was lying on his front. I found him bleeding. I was shocked and surprised. The man was quite slight. So I picked him up by grabbing him under the arms, and he clasped around my back. We reached the car, and I leant him against the car. I took his trousers down and tied my handkerchief around his leg to act as a tourniquet, to try and stop the flow of blood.
Cholmondeley has Robert and Joya rushed to hospital. Later, Tom Cholmondeley and Carl Tundo are taken to Nakuru police station. Cholmondeley tells police he has shot Robert and Joya, but by mistake.
I would say Tom was still in a shock. When I wanted now to know the details from them, Tom actually narrated the incident, the entire, and he owned up shooting the man, but by mistake. By mistake. That's what he put it. And I took it as gospel truth.
Cholmondeley is a crack shot who loves to hunt. He'd started a business supplying game meat for sale. It went well until the government banned the killing of all wild animals. The killing of Robert and Joya wasn't an isolated incident. Everything was colored by what happened just a year before.
This is the slaughterhouse. There was an incident here where people came in, they apprehended the workers that were working here. They came by vehicle up this road here, from the main road.
Kenyan game wardens suspected Cholmondeley was still selling game meat after the ban and decided to try and prove it by going undercover. Armed undercover wardens arrived at the slaughterhouse. Cholmondeley heard his men were in danger. He picked up a gun and ran to help. In a confused shootout, he killed a warden. Cholmondeley was taken to prison, appeared in court, but after a month he was released. The public prosecutor concluded that Cholmondeley fired in self-defense.
So what have the past few weeks been like then?
Very tense, because my son was in jail. We felt he'd done nothing except try and defend my people, which obviously the Attorney General agrees with. Forgive me, I'm sorry.
The dead man was a Maasai. Protests erupted. People thought he had been let off unjustly. Maasai claim that the Delamere stole their land.
Today, how does the family of the deceased feel? Do they feel there has been justice in the case? One person lives smiling. Another one is 6 feet down under.
I'm going to go back home and I'm going to settle down with my family again and try to live as calm and uneventful life as possible.
Quite early in the morning, I got a call from one of my partners, Nigel Shaw, and he said, "Fred, you can't believe what's happened." I said, "What is it?" He says, "It seems we have another incident, shooting incident on Soisambu." And I said to him, "Not Tom." He said, "Yes." He says, "Is there anybody injured?" "Dead," he says. And I was quite reluctant, quite frankly, to take on the matter. Nonetheless, Lord Delamere got in touch with me, and I said I would go over to Soisambu and have a look at the scene and everything else. And I began to feel curious about what could have happened here and how could it have happened.
"50 years ago, All land around here was reserved for whites only. But since Kenyan independence, thousands of families have crowded in to scrape a living on small farms. Like the families of the one who got killed, Robert Njoya and his wife Sarah. Sarah sells the few greens she can grow at the market in the nearest town, Nakuru. Here, most people see the case as a symptom in the struggle for land and an echo of colonial injustice. A few wealthy Kenyans own most of the land in a highly overpopulated country, with landless and unemployed Kenyans like Robert Njoya, who turn to poaching to survive.
Politicians say, look, Delamere has big land, and then nothing happens because they discovered it won't grow anything. Well, I suppose you've got to try and keep making a profit. I haven't made a profit for 20 years.
The family is proud of Cholmondeley's great-grandfather, Lord Delamere. He was the most powerful of the aristocrats who left England to colonize Kenya. He led what the colonists saw as a great march of civilization into a savage country. He created a huge cattle farm, forcing the Maasai from their ancestral grazing land, and called it Soisambu.
The Delamere family is studied in the history books. It's actually a subject in history and a lesson in our colonial struggle. So it's a family that is very well known in Kenya. Yeah.
Cholmondeley was born 5 years after Kenya became independent in 1963. Most white settlers decided to sell their farms and go back to Britain. But his grandfather stayed on.
Are you, Lord Delamere, prepared to take out Kenyan citizenship?
Now, that is a very difficult subject because no one wishes to change their nationality readily. All I can say to you, there is little doubt in my mind that I shall do so.
Mr. Kenyatta, some of the 60,000 European settlers here are frightened that their titles to land and their right to stay in Kenya may be thrown overboard when a Kenyan administration takes over.
Well, I don't think they have anything to fear, providing that they behave as a good citizen.
There were very few white Kenyans left. They kept to themselves and their traditions. Racial and tribal tensions were played down by a new Kenyan elite, but remained unresolved, especially over land.
My tribe is a sort of English, although by nationality I'm Kenyan. But I know what my tribe is, so does every Kikuyu know what his tribe is. My tribe is English.
There have been constant delays in the trial. 2 years after the start of the trial, the defense finally presents their case.
Well, as far as we're able to gather, Tom was with Kaltunda and they were going out to look around for a place. It became quite clear that something a lot more happened that night than just what was said happened. I was trying to tell Tom is that this is his life. And I said to him, are you telling me the whole truth? I had known Tom since the last event, and I had spent a lot of time with him then and after. And I sort of got an idea of what he was like. I remember in the early days asking him whether there was more than one gun there, and he never answered it. I know about guns, and I know particularly about about hunting rifles and rifle like that. And it just didn't sound right that the injury which had been sustained could have been the one that could have been inflicted by this weapon at such a close range. He was shielding someone. And I just felt that he probably was shielding Flash.
The police investigation shows that the bullet which killed Robert Njoya shattered and cannot be identified. In theory, the bullet could have come from another gun.
Tom fires at 2 dogs, which drop dead right there. And you can imagine Tom standing there and firing. His ears are completely unprotected. You may very well not have heard a 30 or 9mm pistol being fired simultaneously. When Tom moved to the dogs and looked this side, Carlton was coming from that direction. And that's where the man was lying. Would you like to do what he was doing? So you could see him quite clearly. So they were there. That's where the animals were. And that's where you were. You said you could see through those bushes. Or did you not say that? Sorry? Did you not say that you could see a glimpse of the animals through the bushes?
Through the bushes, correct.
Did they look like buffaloes? No. So why did you run?
I didn't know what they were.
Okay.
The defense called Cholmondeley as their witness. They are going to reveal startling news about Carl Tundo.
What would like to call the accused, my lord?
He had a pistol in his hand. I didn't mention this in my statement because that night in the cells, Flash was really upset and tearful. He asked me not to mention it for fear that he would get into trouble. Prior to seeing him with that pistol in his hand, I hadn't known that he was carrying a pistol. That was because his shirt was untucked.
That's absolute crap, if I'm allowed to say that. It's a figment of his imagination. I didn't have a pistol. Why didn't he... Sorry, it just frustrates me because that is absolute crap. And it actually, my blood boils when I hear things like that. This whole thing has been turned into a circus by his team. What would he gain by taking the fall for me? St. Tom, I mean, what would he gain? Seriously.
Tom is somebody who has this huge sense of honour and will protect people, will protect his friend, and in this case, he protected his friend. You know, we never imagined this would be a murder charge. We never thought it was possible, you know, that it would be murder. And as we've, you know, because of the very fact that whatever happened, it was an accident that day, a tragic accident.
I saw him kneel down and take aim at something, and then the shots came out. So you put 2 and 2 together, and the fact that he fired, and the fact that he said he fired.
This wasn't a complex case, really. Take it this way: you see a group of persons, and you say they were close enough to you or near enough to you that they could actually tell you or shout it to you, huwezi kufanya kitu. And then you decide to take out one of the dogs, the other dog, and so on and so forth. A reasonable person in the circumstances would have foreseen reasonably the serious risk of shooting either the person who ended up being shot or any one of his colleagues.
He's been through the situation. He knows that he is at the end of his, do you see where I'm coming from? The end of his credit, because he's been through the scenario once before, only a year before.
I can't believe it. He said, Tom's done it again. And I said, what's Tom done, And he said, he's just shot somebody else. And he was in a real state of shock. So I said, well, OK, well, what's that to do with you? And he said, the problem is, I was there. And he said, where's Dad? I really need Dad. He said, I can't cope with this on my own.
When this story came out with trying to put the blame on him, eventually I said to Flash, let him rot. As far as I'm concerned, he can rot in jail. Just leave it alone, stay out of it, and let the cops and whatever get on with it. As far as I'm concerned, if that's the way he wants to play it, you just leave the bugger, leave the guy where he is, and it's his problem.
Tom kept saying to anybody who came, I can bring you about 4 or 5 of those sort of witnesses, he kept saying, I'm really sorry to have involved Flash, I don't know what he's doing here. He said it to the police. He said to the police, why are you holding on to Carl? And as we've said so many times, there were 2 people up there that day. There was Carl and there was Tom. Mm. None of these other people have any idea what went on, how it went on, but, they all know. They all have the story and they know. And that's pretty damning for Carl. I actually don't think Tom realises how bad it's been for Flash. It's the reputation.
It's your reputation. Well,
yeah.
I don't know, it's difficult but.
Well, we're not incriminating him. That's not our responsibility or duty. What we want to do is to put forward the fact of what happened and the facts which were ignored by the prosecution. And from our point of view, quite deliberately, we want the prosecution to know, or the court to know, that there was much more to this than the prosecution have said.
The case initially began as a case of provocation and almost to some extent self-defense. You cannot say, I shot in self-defense or out of provocation, and then on the other hand, you said, no, but it wasn't me, actually. It was my colleague, very probably my colleague. It couldn't have been me.
The case isn't as easy and straightforward as they thought it was. And therefore they were trying to stymie the defense or maybe just tire us, get us so frustrated by waiting and long intervals of nothingness that we lose concentration. That was very frustrating, and it was frustrating for the client as well. But
why do you think they did that?
I think it was actually intended to frustrate us. I think it was a plan. It was a plan by the leader of the prosecution.
My own view is it's a class case. Cholmondeley just happens to be white and a settler from the colonial era, to have that ancestry. And that's why I say it could happen with a rich African rancher. It would still be the same. It is the rich who have grabbed all the land in Kenya, allegedly, who enjoy the land to the detriment of the have-nots. And even when a poor man goes there to harvest or to steal, in this case, animals, they react by shooting them dead instead of having them arrested.
There is a fear that the trial could contribute to damaging the country's fragile peace. Elections have given rise to violent tribal confrontations and bloodshed related to the issue of land. A rapidly growing population and unequal division of land is a constant source of tension in Kenya.
The majority opinion, especially by guys within the Rift Valley, where land issues are very emotive, was anti-Delamere. And it's like these guys have these huge tracts of land. The indigenous Kenyans should have access to it anyway. And this guy is trigger happy. He uses the gun as a toy, which he can experiment on. So that was the tone from that side. But the more elitist, the lawyer type, the middle class people, were treating it as a property dispute. Somebody trespasses on your property. It could be a burglar, it could be a poacher, it could be anybody, and you feel threatened and you have a gun. What recourse do you have?
We started farming, there were 5 million people, now there are 38 million people. And Kenya has a very, very small arable area for growing food. You know, it was covered with trees and animals, this country, when I was young, and now it's covered with people, and the trees are being cut down and the animals are gone. And people are hungry, there are a lot of hungry people now.
Lord Enniskillen, like many of the white Kenyan landowners, is involved in wildlife conservancy and anti-poaching efforts.
I understand. People are very hungry. And if you can grab a small piece of wire and set it in a tree and you can get enough food for your family for a few days, why wouldn't you?
I'm sort of horrified by all of it. It's all this sort of hatred, if you like, against him has all been whipped up by sort of taxi drivers and politicians in Nairobi, people who don't even know him. But here he did a good job and he was loved.
You see, that is telephone wire. It's been made into a snare. They just put it into a noose and then attach the other end to a tree or a fence, and then the animal just gets caught. You see now there are the dogs. There's a pack of dogs on the hill there, 6 of them. A pack is not good news. Those dogs are back on us. And if I wasn't preoccupied, I'd be shooting them. You can tell them that. In Tom's case, he has a certain duty to protect the wildlife, even let alone his own property. So I have a lot of sympathy for what happened and what he did. In principle, I would have done the same thing. If I find stray dogs on my farm, I do shoot them. They shouldn't be there. There's a danger of rabies. And, you know, one has to try and maintain some law and order. These are some of the snares that we've collected off the farm. We actually took that off a dead animal. This is the remains of the blood. Most of this is off zebra. And these are 800 of ones that have been sort of sorted out and ready to dispose of. I collect them all and lock them away because, of course, if you don't, they just get recycled.
But it's really interesting if you think about what you've just seen up on the farm. Did you not see 6 yellow dogs chasing wildlife? Now, if Andrew had a gun, and if he'd shot one of those dogs, and if there was a man in the bush behind the dogs and the bullet had ricocheted and hit the man and he died, it's just as simple as that. It's so simple, isn't it? Yeah. And you are supposed to shoot dogs hunting on your land, hunting wildlife.
The motivation here was revenge, right? you must punish them for trespassing onto your land, poaching on your land, laying a series of snares on your land, and so on and so forth. That was and still is our position.
Kusema kweli, watu wangu wameelewa yote yaliyotendeka juu magazeti yameandikwa, redio zilikuwa zinatangaza kila wakati na TV. Saa hata yule mdogo hakuwa ati ananiuliza kenye kiliendelea. Watu walikuwa wanajua, wakienda shule wanakuta marafiki zao huko, wanawaambia kila jambo. Saa enyewe yote wanajua, hata kama sijawaambia. Kusema kweli, ilikuwa ngumu kwangu kutoka mwaka huo wa 2006. Juu ilikuwa ilinibidi niwe, siku ya kesi nilikuwa naamka asubuhi najitayarisha, alafu na ilikuwa jukumu yangu kujua watoto wangu venye nimewaacha, chakula zenye nimewaachia kaitawatosha kwa siku zenye nitaenda kwa kesi. Saa ilikuwa ngumu kwangu.
I worried so much about Tom in prison, and so there's never a day where I feel happy and free because part of me is with him, and I just know how much he's suffering. When I first came to here, I was just captivated by Kenya. I loved it. It was when I came when I was 18, and it was like all my dreams and adventures, and I was reading anthropology at university, and I was on safari a lot, and I was a real adventurer. I just soaked it up. I loved everything about this country.
It's been a difficult case, also because I knew that I was dealing with a client who was not particularly loved by the society.
I'm making a library at the prison, and I had a prisoner to carry my books. I'd taken a lot of boxes and they were too heavy for me. And he'd been there 14 years and hadn't been tried. And I certainly don't think Tom's victimised. In fact, I think, on the whole, Tom gets away with a lot in the prison that the Africans don't. I think it's the other way around. I think he has a better time. He's very good at getting on with his fellow men, and I admire that. And I notice all the other prisoners like him, and all the warders like him too. And that is very clever.
Cholmondeley has been in prison during the 3-year-long trial. At last, the judge is on his way to give a verdict.
I think I can go as far as to say that. I'm not sure that the judge, yes, he believes it, but I think there is a doubt in his mind. I think there certainly is a doubt in his mind.
The accused has been charged for the offense of murder. The particulars of the offense are as follows. On the 10th of May 2006, at Soisambu Farm on the Delamere Estate, the accused murdered Robert Njoya Mbugua. The accused explained that he did not know that Carl Tundo was carrying a pistol. However, in his statement to the police, the accused never mentioned that Carl Tundo was carrying a pistol. The accused explained that he never did that because when they were arrested, Carl Tundo was tearful and upset at the Nakuru police station. I find that the evidence of Carl Tundo is credible and without any malice. His evidence did not only place the accused at the scene, but also proved that he had fired several bullets. More importantly, his evidence clearly showed that there was only one firearm at the scene, and that is the Winchester rifle of the accused. It is apparent that the 3 spent cartridges found to have been fired from the Winchester rifle, Exhibit 12A, that belongs to the accused. Significantly, the searching party never found any spent cartridges belonging to any other firearm at the scene. I find as a fact that it was the accused who had shot the deceased, resulting in his death. The medical evidence show that the deceased was shot from behind. It shows that after the first shot, the deceased was also running away from the scene.
I was just thinking, oh my God, Tom's going to go down. And that basically that he decided not to believe any of our defense, which was really upsetting because, we had a very strong defense.
I hereby find, which I do, that the accused did not have any malice aforethought to kill the deceased. Due to the total circumstances of this case, the court hereby reduces the charge of murder to that of manslaughter.
plan to kill Fred? Yes.
Was this what you expected or?
No. At least I have shot amazed drumstruck. Yes.
So what is it?
I have a confusion of feelings, actually. I on the one hand, I feel disappointed. On another, I feel quite happy that the offence has been reduced to manslaughter. I think that's a good thing. It's a silver lining. Yeah.
Kwangu niko na roho ya kusamehe, kwa hivyo singependa ati wakuwe na punishment kubwa ama kitu kama hiyo. Nimeenda kwa mateso mengi. Sasa singependa hata wao wateseke kama venye nimeteseka.
Even though Cholmondeley is acquitted of murder, the judge can give him up to 20 years in prison for manslaughter. In 2 days, he'll be sentenced.
I don't feel any bitterness towards Tom. I feel let down, hurt. I feel bitterness towards Tom's camp. I do feel huge resentment against that.
Of course, what he did wrong is what we've all been teaching our children for many years, is not to fire when you don't see where the end of the bullet is. And that was a very stupid thing to do, but it was stupid, not evil.
Some gesture of remorse is expected, but that is impossible because Cholmondeley refuses to accept that he is guilty.
I watched some of the clips on television last night, and some of the lawyers who said, you must plead with the court, you must really try and get the courts to be merciful towards you. I really don't know that is the purpose of mitigation necessarily. First, it wouldn't be true. And secondly, it wouldn't be what Tom wants to say, because he feels he didn't do it, and he feels that needs to be pushed to the highest possible level.
The defense will make a carefully worded offer of money for the Njoya family in return for Cholmondeley's release.
My Lord, the most regrettable thing about the events of the 10th of May 2006 was that a young father and husband lost his life. Whatever the legalities of the situation, my Lord, the fact is that my client, the accused, and indeed his whole family, Lord and Lady Delamere, feel and share the anguish of the Njoya family. They also entertain the hope and the confidence that, to the extent humanly possible, to try and assuage the pain suffered by both sides by meeting whatever material and spiritual needs which may exist.
There should be no suggestion that there is one law for the rich and one for the poor. Luckily, this trial has subjected the accused to the due process of the law, without any regard to his wealth, status, or race. I do believe deeply that the process has humbled the accused person. I hereby wish, which I do, to impose a light sentence on the accused to allow him to reflect on his life and change to an appropriate direction. The upshot is that I hereby sentence the accused to 8 months imprisonment. Right of appeal explained. Those are the orders of this case.
We respect the decision of the judge. Nonetheless, we, on our part, feel that the sentence is too lenient in the circumstances of this case.
On a TV poll, 90% of Kenyans think Cholmondeley has got off lightly.
I do believe that there can be great healing on both sides. I think it's very important that the enjoyers' family are well looked after, and I think the Delameres, they're not horrible people.
Gives very poor judgment and really makes the ratio of superiority looks very negative to the Africans, because 8 months is nothing.
The judge has kept Kenya's wider conflicts out of the courtroom, but urged Cholmondeley to reflect on his life. The message is clear. If he survives in Kenya now, it will be in spite of, not because he is a Delamere.
It happens every day in our residential estates, where the slum dweller next to your nice middle-class estate comes to steal from you, and they're lynched by members of the public, and there's tension between the slum dwellers and the middle-class suburban residents. And so I think this just took it a notch higher because of who Cholmondeley was.
I wonder whether Tom can settle back into life as it has always been at Soisambu. He thinks he can, I think. Because we talk about how to make money out of Soisambu a lot, but I wonder whether he really can.
Tom's longing to get here and help and, run round in circles. He thinks we're being elderly about the whole thing.
Well, I expect I am.
We are.
But I'm determined to soldier on, because I think that's what Tom wants to do. I think it'll be all right, but I don't know. You can only hope and trust and pray.
Sarah Njoya wants a future for her children too. Now, she is waiting for the Delamere family to come and give her the help they promised in court.
Nasubiri tu juu najua tu watakuja, lakini ilikuwa najiuliza kwani ilikuwa tu waseme, lakini najua tu watakuja.
We're neighbours, so I feel it's really real empathy towards Sarah. She's a very, she's just been very calm. And I was very touched by that. I really will make sure that she's okay and that her children are okay and that we can maybe become close. I just hope we can really help each other.
I hope.
We were alien anyway. We didn't think we were, but we were alien. And I don't think there is room for my grandchildren. There's some really bright young Africans now you meet. That's the hope. Don't you agree that they're good young Africans?